All right, so let's get started on our Midrash on Torah portion, double Torah portion, Chuqqat, Balaq.
Even if they run out of time.
Before we get Midrashing, Scripture says, "So eat and be satisfied, you will bless Adonai your God for the good land He has given you." So let's do that. Abba, we have eaten and we're satisfied, and we thank you for the land. It's in Yeshua's name we thank you. Amen. All right, so this is our readings we did for the Torah portion itself. This brings us to the question of the number of mitzvot in the portion. Is it 0, 3, 5, or 7, according to the traditional count for the double portion by one?
I'm gonna go with 0.
I'm gonna go with A.
I'll go with C. Because the first part is
There's
supposed to
stuff for
be.
the red heifers.
Yeah, the whole thing about the red heifer.
Red
I mean,
heifer.
Oh, it did have that in there, didn't it?
Yeah, okay, I better go with 3.
All right,
I'll go with C.
I'm gonna go with B.
first one out is 0.
Oh, good thing we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the red heifer.
Second one out is 7,
Okay.
between 3 and 5. The answer is there are 0 in Balaq. There are 3 in Chuqqat. And here are they. The first one, of course, as you mentioned, the Torah of the red heifer. Also, all these come from chapter 19 and Torah of the Tuma, or the defilement of a corpse, uncleanness of a corpse, and the Torah of the water of purification. So they're all kind of related to each other.
Okay.
So they're counting it as 3, even though there was the section for the priest, the section for the guy that was helping, and then a third guy who was supposed to be clean and then became unclean when he.
That all falls into the
Double, yeah.
Torah of the red heifer. Yeah.
Um,
In that sense.
I have a question from the first part
Okay.
of not this section, but the part before, because it said it stopped the disease or something. Was it? I'm trying to remember the words. No, they were fornicating with the
Right. The
when they
They'll have pincus in
I
that
think
next chapter.
that's not it's the end of this chapter, right? Not,
Yeah.
or into the
So then
section.
the last
It'll
one.
be
Yeah.
in the next one.
There was a plague that was starting, and it was stopped by Pinchas's actions. So that's
What kind of plague? I mean, like chicken pox or sexual disease?
one that ends in death
It's deadly.
and fast.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
they
didn't mention what kind.
Like a sexual disease or
It
something.
wasn't, the snakes were earlier, where you had to hold up the snake.
So it's like entirely different
Right.
thing that God was just like, okay, you're gonna get this disease because you're the best.
You're dead.
You're going after the gods.
I don't know that we can really answer directly in terms of what kind of disease or plague was done. It doesn't really give any specifics on that, except for the outcome of it.
Yeah,
Quick
Fast.
death was the result.
But it wasn't the lingering death, so you can see how merciful that was. Makes sense. Okay, so to start with, then let's talk about the portion and what we liked about it, and what if anything bothered you about our readings today.
Loved everything with Balaam and Balaq. Anything of blessing and everything.
It's kind of weird about the donkey talking,
Yeah.
He didn't even
and
have-
his reaction wasn't even like,
That's
what?
not-
It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know.
He didn't act like this.
Uh-uh. Didn't phase him a bit.
The donkey, that's the weird part.
I think the animals used to talk before. I
Yeah, but that was way back in creation, not in his time.
Also, I feel like he seems to God do so much stuff that he would think that's normal. That's like God could do that, but like, why would that not surprise him? I guess he was so mad. He was just like, I don't care if something weird
You know,
happens.
maybe God has a sense of humor.
Oh, we know that.
Maybe he's like, watch this.
But they have porn playing, so obviously he does.
Yeah, we know God has a sense of humor. I'm right here. He made me. Actually, there was something that when we read through it today that surprised me because I didn't. I had been taught that it was Balaam that told Balaq to send the women down to the Israelites, and that isn't what happened
I
because
think
he
that-
actually was behaving.
that's in the next chapter, I think. It's in the next Torah portion. Because he tells them how they can get Israel to sin.
But they were already doing it. And there was a plague because of it.
Well, there's some reason that Israel killed him. It was Israel that killed him.
Well, you're talking about Balaq?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the next chapter or the next portion or the portion after that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So is Balaq
It's
Moabite or was he something else?
Yes.
He was sacrificing to God. God was cool with him.
He was a sorcerer who was communicating with all kinds of so-called spirits. That's another thing about not just the donkey being weird. But Yah, even though he was talking to all these other spirits and entities, Yah still communicates with him.
That's another one.
Yeah, and
I
during
think
this
that
whole
was like-
segment, he was behaving. He said, I'll only say what God tells me to
Yeah,
say.
he was.
That's all I did.
But evidently,
God had to get his attention to make sure
Yeah.
he did it exactly God's way.
There's another battle here. It shows up somewhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
this whole storyline's kind of weird because at first God tells him not to go with him. Then he tells him to go with him. Then on the way, God tries to stop him. And then eventually says, yeah, I'll go with him. So it keeps going back and forth.
Yeah, I think it was like, God was like, go, but he had said, I will tell you what to say, like, he didn't say not to say if you're going to,
Yeah,
or whatever.
but before that, he
So-
told him not to go with him.
Yeah, I feel like it.
Yeah, the first time the
there's
guy showed up,
intentions.
he said, don't go with him.
Mhm.
So we did.
And then he said, that is really weird.
Maybe it was, it has to do with the beating.
The problem kind of is the lack of specificity.
Yeah, there's something
English.
missing in all of it.
Yeah, the Hebrew says for the don't go with them is to not accompany him and do what he wants you to do. The other part of going with him is accompanying him. You can go with him, accompanying him, but you're not going with him in the sense of,
You know, that wasn't made clear the first time God told him not to go. That wasn't explained. I mean,
well, it's actually evident in the text, but it's
in the
not.
text, but I mean, when he first told him not to go. And then he told him, okay, go.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
If they're-
but just the,
If they had gone the first time, they're gonna. The second
yes.
time,
See, English.
I have successfully bribed this guy. That if they are to call him.
If they called him, but he was up before they were and had his donkey ready to go.
No, that was, he went with them after communing with God.
Well,
The night.
the
first time, I think it was to prove to Balaq that he's not gonna be bribed. Telling him not to go the first time. For nothing, right?
I don't know, I just think it looks like there's a lot missing out of that. There's pieces missing
well, I think
to
there's
help you understand.
I think I have at least one slide that will address that seeming incongruence.
Sorry, didn't mean to jump.
No, that's good. That's good. That's a good question. With whom or with what can you relate to in any of the readings?
The donkey.
Yeah, I've been called a jack before.
Beat with a stick.
And beaten with a stick. Yeah. My daddy could do that good.
Well, you turned out so good.
I was thinking about maybe sometimes it was God's timing for him to go, when to go.
I was thinking like his heart behind it, like the first time he said it for to go, it seemed like he's like, oh, I'm gonna do whatever God tells me to do, but like he didn't say no, so maybe I can curse them. And it's like, no, stop him on the way, because it might have been a heart change. That makes me think of the thing with Manasseh, where it's like, how did Israel test him? Because it says that don't test Adonai like you did in Manasseh.
Mhm.
It says,
Right.
What they did was like, is Adonai with us? Sometimes you do that out of
So how,
not.
so
Like,
how
where are
did
you?
how did they do it in Manasseh?
They tested him saying, "Where is Adonai with us or not?"
What are these readings telling us about Elohim or about Yeshua?
Well, it's one of the earliest examples of a prophecy of Yeshua's birth existence. That the angel of the Lord, that is one of the names for Jesus before his incarnation.
And he didn't have a problem with Balaam bowing to it. If it was just an angel, they always say, don't bow to it.
Well, as if you look at your Bibles to chapter, I think it's 22, something Jim had noticed in the reading.
22, yeah.
22.
No, not 22.
That's the one in the point he's.
Well, yeah, that's
fixing to
where
bring
he,
up.
where he started,
But God's angry. But God's
but
angry.
where God was angry with.
Well, the text in 22 says something like this: God's anger flared because he went, and the angel of Adonai stationed himself on the path to bar his way. He was riding on his donkey, and two servants were with him. So, in the translation here that says to bar his way, is actually the Hebrew text says lesatan,
Stood in his way as a Satan.
or as an adversary.
So they're calling the angel of God Satan.
Which just means adversary.
Right. But most, like we were talking, most people when they hear that word, they're thinking, you're saying, how can he be angel of God and the devil? Well, they're not saying he's the devil.
'Cause
He's
the
a
devil-
Satan.
the
That
devil's
means
different.
Satan is,
Adversary.
if we're arguing a point,
Yep.
you're a Satan to me, I'm a Satan to you.
Antagonist.
Adversary. That's-
Yeah, I think the problem of the confusion with the second, the princes that Balaq sent to Balaam, they were of a higher rank. He said that, he said, though Balaq were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. Meaning he would
I have
not
a
be,
suspicion.
he would not be bribed by silver or gold, even if
Yeah,
his entire.
that could be one, but in other places,
Yeah.
saying
They got-
that is a kind of a Hebrew, an old Hebrew way of negotiating.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Even
that's
though
what
he
Abram
is.
did when he and I got,
Abram did the same thing.
yeah, God came to him at night and said, if the men have come to call you, rise, go with them, but only do what I tell you. Yeah,
I have a suspicion that the reason God got angry that he was going was because he was going and, okay, I'm gonna go do this thing, and it's, God said, I only want you doing what I want, so I think it was I think it was attitude. When
How
he
much
was,
money can I get out of it?
I was thinking,
well, I'm not even sure if it was how much money.
he
got
wasn't
out of it.
saying that, but that sounds like it was in the back of his mind somewhere.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
that,
and the angel was there to set his heart, to set his heart in the right place. Or donkey.
Or donkey.
Or spare the donkey.
The donkey did nothing
I
wrong.
found that slide, I don't see it in my thing here, so. I might not have the slide that I was looking for to answer your question, so I may have to table that when we get there. There is a word difference in the text about going with you. And I don't have it up here to answer that, I guess.
Probably a difference between going with them to the place.
Yeah.
And doing what God says, or just going with them, going along with what they want done. Similar concepts, but different outcomes. The number two, the with whom, on a slightly different subject.
Mhm.
I relate to Phineas, because there's lots of times when I see people doing stupid stuff and I want to stick a spear through them.
Don't think that's generally recommended.
Not in this day and age.
Well, even then, he was at risk, right? If he hadn't been really divinely guided to do that, he'd be up on charges of murder, right?
I don't know. It seems to be the start of with Levi. Yeah. That just seems to be a start through a thread. Through.
Connecting thread for their lead.
They have a tendency to be violent.
For their tribe, starting with the original tribe.
Well, they got in trouble for Shem, killing all the men in Shem, and that was why they lost their inheritance. And they were given the goal of being a priest because it's very bloody, sacrificing all those animals.
Yeah, Russell is very passionate.
That could be.
So in the case with Phineas that you were just talking about, since it's separated in our Bibles, we think that it's not connected to what happened before that. But that's why they were all there crying, is because God told them they had to kill all of those leaders. And they were there crying, and oh, no, no. So here, Phineas jumps up and does what God's telling him to do.
It didn't even sound like that was one of the leaders. It was just some man decided
He was
to.
a prince.
He was
Hey,
a
I'm gonna
prince.
take this. I'm gonna take this.
He
girl
was a
with me
prince.
anyway.
Yeah, he was a prince. He was,
Yeah.
Well, they're all sitting there crying and moaning because, oh, we gotta kill our relatives or whoever, yeah, please, God, please. And Phineas, boom, he does it.
Well, it's
One that's in the act of.
in the act of, yeah, exactly. As you can see, it was a preventative measure
Right.
because the plague had already started, right? The plague had already started, and 24,000 people were dead before it ended
Because they were all groaning and not getting it done.
They're not immediately walking out what he told them to do. That's true. So question 4, what is this text telling you to do? Sharpen your spear.
Get a spear.
More descriptive than prescriptive.
Yeah, I think we're not told this. I mean, this was at that time and place, because since then, there's not been any other incidents, at least recorded, of someone jumping up and stabbing a prince of Israel and his consort.
Maybe you could look at it, the whole thing of, the plague came because they weren't being obedient, so we should look at it of, we need to be obedient when God calls us to do something.
Immediate obedience, I guess I would say, yeah. Any stabs, so to speak, at taking a short summary of the text?
I have a question.
Yes.
Because he said they sent some princesses to him, and then they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get more higher up princes." So were they actually prince? Were they all?
They were higher ranked.
Or were just like military?
Which princes are you talking about? The princes that came sent from Balaam, or princes of
To
Israel?
him to tell him, I'll give you this money to do this.
No, I think
Yeah, the first ones were probably, weren't princes, it didn't say. It
They were
just said they were
emissaries.
officials.
official.
And the second one, some of them were
Higher
mentioned
ranked,
as,
yeah.
were higher ranked and were mentioned as princes.
Not because I thought they were all prince.
No, the second group was sent was, more influential, you can say.
Oh, it says it was the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian with the fees for divination in their hand.
The first one and the second one.
The first one. They were the elders for both Moab and
So
Midian.
they were the
Yeah.
ones who sat at the gates.
And then, yeah.
Supposedly. And the
Yeah,
second one were higher ranked.
Oh, it actually does say that they were princes of Moab.
In the second group.
No, in the first one.
What?
Chapter 22, verse 8. And he said to them, lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me. So the princes of
Numbers
Moab,
22?
Yeah,
22,
number-
22, verse 22 is in the second.
22,
second group.
22 verse 8.
no, 22,
Chapter 22, verse 8.
First.
But verse 15 says, he sent more of princes, higher status in the first
Higher
group.
status, yeah.
22:15.
Yeah, so they were both.
They're both
princes.
set as
So there were
princes.
princes among them, okay.
So it said second string first.
Yeah, the second group
So how can they be
was
higher up
higher
when
number
they're all the same family?
and
Princes of rank, I mean, you can be
having more
a
honor.
prince, if you're the third son of, the subordinate king, you're a prince. But if you're the first son of the first king, you're a higher ranking prince. Even in the UK, for example, the sons.
You're lower in the family tree.
You're you could look at in terms of what their ability is, their order of succession, perhaps would be the same. Who is, if this guy died, who would be king, so to speak. Or, I mean, you could just say just by maybe other ways as well, but. All right, so let's move on. B'nai Abraham has often been publishing short videos. They didn't publish one for this one. But we're going to look at an older one from 119, which has one. This is just for one of the two Torah portions. So, public place. Volume.
Welcome to another episode of PowerShop Points, short thoughts from the weekly Torah portion. This week's PowerShop point comes from Chuqqat, which is Hebrew for statute, and it goes from Numbers 19:1 to Numbers 22:1. This Torah portion gives instructions concerning the red heifer ritual, tells the story of Moses striking a rock, and records the deaths of Aaron and Miriam. It also tells the account of Moses holding up the bronze serpent, which saved the Israelites who were bitten by snakes when they looked at it. And it records the conquest of Arad, the Amorites, and Bashan. There's a lot we can talk about in this Torah portion. Today, we're going to talk about trusting in God. Numbers chapter 20. Take Aaron and Eleazar, his son, and bring them up to Mount Or, and strip Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar, his son. And Aaron shall be gathered to his people and shall die there. Moses did as Yahweh commanded, and they went up on Mount Or in the sight of all the congregation. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron had perished, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days. In this Torah portion, we see that Aaron, the first high priest of Israel, an important spiritual leader within the nation, had passed on and was replaced by his son, Eleazar. No doubt about it, this was deeply discouraging for many of the Israelites who looked to Aaron for spiritual direction. The scriptures say that the Israelites wept for Aaron 30 days. Perhaps you can imagine how painful and confusing of a time this must have been for the Israelites. One of their spiritual leaders had died. Now they had to get used to someone taking his place. It was a big adjustment. But what's important to note is that the Israelites did eventually move on. After a season of mourning, they moved forward in their journey, even though Aaron was no longer with them. Ultimately, Yahweh was still the one leading them. Sometimes things happen that seem to turn our lives upside down. Sometimes people we love and are close to, who we think will be in our lives forever, leave. Sometimes we get let go from a job we've held for years. But we must keep in mind that despite feeling like we've lost everything, God is still with us. He is leading us. We must continue to move forward. God's desire is that we trust in Him above everything and everyone else. He is the one who provides for us, teaches us, guides us. Circumstances change. People move in and out of our lives. We go through tragedies. People we love leave, die, or even betray us. But the one constant we have is God Himself. He will never leave us nor forsake us. He is always there. Thank you for joining us for another Parashah Point. We pray that you've been blessed by this teaching. And remember, continue to test everything. Shalom.
Okay, this is a weird thing. Aaron died up on the mountain, but the high priest can't touch death. And Moses didn't say he had to be clean from the red heifer, so very.
No one knows for years, only God knows for years.
I know it says that about Moses. It says God buried Moses, but it doesn't say nobody knows where, but it doesn't say anything about Aaron. But the high priest can't touch death.
He wasn't dead when he did gone.
No, but he died before they came down unless somebody left him up there.
They didn't bring him down.
No, they didn't bring him down.
Probably they probably buried him, but
Well, dig a hole and something touch it.
I mean, it is a thought.
The only thing coming to my mind is Mafia. They had him dig the hole and then they pushed him in afterwards.
That's not very nice.
Thing is, it said he died. It didn't exactly say how he died either.
No, it doesn't. I just figured, and that had to be weird for him, knowing he was going up there to give his son his thing, and that he was gonna die up there.
Well, kind of the same thing happened to Moses.
I did notice that he took off, he was stripped of his his priestly garments before he died.
Yes.
He could have been eaten by the lions.
Gotta go out there.
I don't think God would do that to him.
I think they buried him. I think that because he knew that he was going to die, he went into, after he gave his son his garments, he went into a cave and they put rocks in front of that cave.
Either that or they just left it to God. God took care of it.
Normally, doesn't it normally say it was gathered to his That's
That's usually
when
he
he
died.
They died.
There's been genealogies that does that.
Yeah, it's
normally doesn't.
Lived so and so many years, he was gathered to his people.
that's saying he died.
That's what you put as a
He was
first
dead,
guy.
so he died.
Gotta die.
It's a nice way to say,
Well, it's not just a nice way of saying death. It's actually, it obviously looks forward to resurrection.
okay,
Because gathered your people means not,
It's right.
people are people. They're still people, not, not ghosts or whatever. Good question though. Our Torah portion kind of begins. We've talked about it and we started reading it. Zot Chuqqat HaTorah. This is the Chuqqat of the Torah of decree, and this is essentially talking about the red cow or the red heifer as being this, calls it the quintessential Chuqqat HaTorah, the quintessential decree. So when we talk about quintessential. It's actually, it's a Latin word, and the translation is essentially fifth essence. And in this context, it is the most typical example or representative. So it is the most typical example or representative of a choch. Choch is the type of mitzvah that is represented. It is, we said decree of, it could be statute of, it could be regulation of. We talked about previously about the Q's versus the K in terms of transliteration, so you're not surprised by that. But if you remember, there are three types of mitzvot: edot, chukim or chot, and mishpatim. And there's some different translations of those three Hebrew words shown here. There's probably more than these, but edot is the word for witnesses. The word aid is witness. Chukim it translates as laws in the ISR scriptures and in JPS. In New Kings, it's statutes. And for Mishpatim, it's right rulings in the ISR, rules in JPS, and judgments in New Kings. You can recognize Mishpat as part of the word for judgment. Do you remember what's the word for judges? Shoftim, right? So this is a related word to shoftim. And so the kind of mitzvah this is talking about is the chukim here as a middle of those three. And the texts come from Deuteronomy 44:45 or 44, depending on your translation. So you can look at that at some point and see how yours translates it, but it's probably one of those, very similar to that. Talking about the three types of mitzvot. Mishpatim are the typical ones that are so obvious they don't need an explanation. Murder, rape, robbery, those are self-evident. You don't need an explanation to say why those are commanded against, right? But with edot, they're all the testimonies or witnesses. They're pretty much universally about everything about his holiness and about Israel leaving Egypt are the witnesses. So all of the commands of the feast days, the biblical holidays, are called edot, or the witnesses. So that leaves us with chukim or huchot, and that means that we're left with this type of command is neither, the reason for doing it is neither stated nor is it obvious. The Torah of the red heifer is the quintessential one of this, but you can also say that, mixing shatnez, mixing wool and linen together is also among this.
Boiling kid in its mother's milk.
Boiling kid in his mother's milk, that's also something you don't do. But I would also say the instructions in Leviticus 11, are in the same category. The instructions on clean versus unclean, what's edible, what's not. You can say that because it's not obvious. If it were obvious, wouldn't, no one
Don't eat.
well, if it was obvious, no one would be, constantly seeing commercials about, bacon, lobster, and shrimp, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be obvious that those are not on the edible list, but it's not obvious. So it fits in the category of because Yah said so. Questions on the three types of mitzvot? Look at it this way. Elohim, for reasons known only to himself, decided to call his people to follow certain mitzvot and to not give a reason. It goes sideways with the religious world because it doesn't answer the why question.
We do it because we're obedient.
Yes, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. In terms of the red heifer, we see from the red heifer vignette that the numerical value of the red heifer is the same as "it is far from me," and the word for para aduma. And so the conclusion from that is that the man with the most wisdom could not fathom what was meant by the red heifer. So related words chokhmah for wisdom and chuqqat of the red heifer. But it's something that Shlomo, expressed an inability to figure out. Now, what about the ashes of the red heifer? The Mishnah has a book in that section, or in the Mishnah, called para. So para is the word for heifer or cow, right? So there's a whole section of the Mishnah devoted to discussion of this topic. And the discussion of it is how do you replenish the ashes? The idea generally is that you would take ashes from whatever was left from the previous red heifer and mix it from the new red heifer. But the discussion here is they didn't find that from 7, they do it from 6, from 5, from 4, from 3, from 2, or from 1. Well, what if you can't find any? That's kind of the question, right? So according to the Mishnah, there are 9 red heifers from the first one in the desert all the way to essentially the destruction of the Second Temple period. And so the last one, the 9th one, was from the year 15 or 16 of the Common Era. But the first one, you see, lasted all the way through the First Temple period. The first one was from Moshe and Eliezer, so that was the first one. And all the way from the second all the way to the 9th were the Second Temple period. So did Ezra the scribe have ashes from previous red heifer, or did he start it anew? We don't really know for certain. But we know that he started the temple service, so he must have had a red heifer to do it with. You can't for the uncleanness and for the requirements for that. So we don't really know exactly how he did it or the method he used. We do know that he started it, so therefore he must have done it. And so the Mishnah tells us that he was the second to have, second one to have, had the second of the red heifers. So the 10th one, according to Rambam, the 10th one, this is kind of the slide. This is the slide. I talked the slide. It didn't have a slide up. We don't know the procedure for the purification from exile and death. We know that the service was started, so we must have had a method for doing that. But the 10th heifer is going to be, according to Rambam, is the Messiah. Messiah will bring the 10th red heifer, according to Rambam. This is a discussion of how they were kept. The priests were kept pure from that, but not by basically marking where the graves were and not allowing any priest to step on one. This is kind of their discussion of how they would bring it about. But according to Rambam, the 10th red heifer will be brought by King Messiah. Again, that's commentary, it's not scripture. But right now, is there a red heifer? Is there ashes of red heifer?
There's no ashes, but there's supposedly red heifers in
They did a
Israel.
practice burn. There is no such thing as a practice burn. They have ashes.
If you do it all the same right, it's there.
Mhm. But because they don't want to use a single red heifer ashes, they're going to burn a second one and use
The second one,
they're going to
mix them.
they're going to mix them. so that they've got their extra batch.
Well, according to the Copper Scroll, it seems to make reference to ashes of the red heifer, ash purification, being buried at Qumran or wherever the Copper Scroll's reference is to. And so, is this an accurate statement? Previous red heifer ashes must be found to cleanse priests and Levites before they can work in a new temple or tabernacle?
Not biblically. Only by tradition.
How would the priests be able to be cleansed from death then?
They have to have red heifer ashes, not necessarily previous ones.
Okay.
They'd have to burn a red heifer, which they've done and called it a practice.
But there's a time limit on how soon you have to have the to get the ashes of red heifer on you. It's not any time. It's a series of 1 and what's it?
3rd and
3 and 7 days. Yeah.
3rd and 7th day.
The Temple Institute has addressed that question about finding the previous ashes. They said, if a portion of these ashes were indeed set aside for the future sanctification of Israel at Qumran, then perhaps they shall be found, or elsewhere. Well, or perhaps they will only be revealed through divine intervention. Perhaps when the Messiah arrives to identify the location, it would be certainly desirable for all of Israel if the original ashes be located and proved to be authentic beyond any doubt. So that's the Temple Institute's answer to the question. But in the meantime, the truth be known, there's nothing to stop the people of Israel from raising a new red heifer from birth and preparing it in the manner we have described in these pages, and raising it in children purity to carry out the procedure even without the original ashes. On the contrary, you may be in doubt as to the true nature of any discovery that is unearthed whose authenticity can't be verified. But a perfect heifer, born and raised under a controlled environment, will be fit to be used in the temple, and that is precisely what is being done today. So, kind of answers the question in the sense of it's being done today. Whether it's before or after this was published, it has been done already. Perhaps is another way of saying it. Perhaps it seems like it's likely that they have ashes. Whether those ashes will be accepted, it's hard to say.
At the beginning, they had to start somewhere.
Right.
And they already had the priesthood in place before they had the red heifer.
Right. Priests were already anointed before the red heifer was done.
Considering it wasn't even mentioned until Numbers, which was very shortly before they entered the land.
They're about to go into the land, and Moses is now not allowed to go into the land. So and Aaron's dying or dead at the time. So it's very late in the exile, or at least late in the walk through the desert.
Question, do you think that the Orthodox think that they're the Levites?
No, I mean, Levites are the ones who are Cohens, so some Orthodox would be Levites, but it's not. If you're Orthodox, you're Levite. That's not really the case. Because most are Judah.
Well, because all they do is study and all that.
Yeah, but that doesn't make you a Levite. They know that you have people at Levite.
Yeah, but
Well, I'm sure many of those who are engaged in study are trace lineage to Levi.
because something recently happened in Israel where the Orthodox were like fighting. They pulled somebody out of their vehicle, and it looked like it could have been somebody who was in the Israeli defense. And they were protesting, saying that they don't want to be in the Israeli defense.
Well, that's true. There's been this big
But they
dispute.
made-
I mean,
they made
the
it-
Orthodox don't want to be in the IDF.
Yeah, but they're saying
typically, yes.
there is a branch for you already.
Was it what?
There's already a branch. There's already some Orthodox in there who, because they were concerned about their disturbing their routines and everything. They already have a branch that in the Israeli defense that they already have a branch that already does that.
I'm
And
not
so-
sure exactly what you mean. The challenge would be, if you are one of those who are being set aside to be a priest, you wouldn't want to be in the IDF because the good chances, encountering a dead body, unless you're gonna do the ritual for the red heifer, you're not gonna be able to.
But whenever Israel went to battle, the priest went first.
Well, Pinchas
war
was a war
priest.
priest, right?
And who would work right?
The priests who were in the army.
Well, I guess so. I mean, Pinchas
He
is
carried a
listed,
spear.
Pinchas is listed as the war priest specifically.
Yeah, but I mean, was
Like
it
when they went
just
on
because they were called to do that, or?
But they were,
Remember, they used to carry the ark into battle.
yeah.
At the
That
head
was
of
the
the
priest
battle.
carrying the ark.
Okay,
At the head.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't
With shofars and
specifically
everything else.
Aaron's lineage, or was it just the Levites?
If it said priest, then it was Aaron's lineage.
Yeah.
Because all priests are Levites, but not all
Kinda like-
Levites are priests.
Kind of like dogs. All Malamutes are dogs, but not all dogs are Malamutes.
Thank goodness.
Hey, I've had a few of those. I love them.
So the mystery of the red heifer. The priest who burns the red heifer, and who gathers the ash of the red heifer, are made unclean. The one who's sprinkled by the ashes, mixed with pure water, is made clean.
It's an oxymoron.
That's all. So
There's one rabbinic source that I saw today, and I don't remember which one. It says, really, you see sprinkling of the ashes. But all it takes, he said, is 2 to 3 drops in a little bit of ash. And that's it. It's not like they're clouding the place with the ash.
no, I would think not. I mean, but
Not if the first burnt one lasted until the first temple.
Yeah. Well, theoretically, there's only been like, 9 of them?
and that's
This-
And they're still good, and they had to strategically stash them in areas where if someone become unclean, they could reach it in 3 days. Because you had to get purified 3rd day, and then the 7th day.
Yeah,
So they had to
which
stash
means
them
they,
through the country.
Yeah, which means they,
Who knows, we could find something someday.
Which means every major town would have had to have probably.
Or within a 3 days distance.
in the according to the Mishnah, the historical record, Mount of Olives is one place where they're stored. Temple courts, as well as all the Levitical cities, is where they're stored. So they're within range of everybody. Available for whoever needed to purify themselves.
Yeah,
Or be
to actually
purified.
last the second temple period, they would have just like
Yeah, that makes sense because,
sprinkled.
well, how could, just 9 animals and they had to cover, the ashes had to be enough for all that territory? All you needed was a sprinkle and 3 drops of water. Yeah, doable.
It has been suggested that as a prophetic foreshadowing, the water pots used at the wedding of Cana were ones used specifically for purification from death. Therefore, Yeshua's statement, "My hour has not yet come," either to demonstrate his messiahship or to be, to be killed, so to speak, in that sense. So what about the teaching of Balaam? What is the teaching of Balaam?
He taught the enemy of Israel how to get Israel's God to curse them because
Well, not in this section.
Hmm?
Not in this section.
not in this section, but I know he was referring to this section.
Yeah, you can see that Balaam's advice was in fact how to curse Israel. It's by bringing about what Israel was doing here is Balaam's idea of how to do it.
Yeah.
Not prostitutes.
That's what was this is what what the Mishnah, this is not from the Mishnah, this is the section is from Talmud Bavli, that basically says that that's exactly what they did, was to self-curse them by being seduced with wine and hot prostitutes, promising sex if they will only deny the God of Israel and bow down to Baal. That's all you got to do. Just bow down to Baal, it'll be fine. We also can read about, of course, in several places in the apostolic scriptures, the Nazarene writings, 2 Peter 2:15, who have forsaken the right way and have gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. So, loving the wages of unrighteousness. See that trying to get paid for. He made a big deal about. It is. Yeah, he's got paid to give, cursing advice, so to speak. We also see it in the book of Jude, verse 11. Woe to them, for they have gone the way of Cain after the error of Balaam. They have lusted for gain, and the rebellion of Korah, they have perished. So all these are linked together. Cain, Balaam, and Korah are essentially acts of rebellion against the authority of God.
You can't curse God's people, but they can curse themselves.
Yes, that was Balaam's advice. You can also see it in Revelation chapter 2:14, Luke 2:14. But I have a few things against you that there are some who hold the teaching of Balaam, who kept teaching Balaq to put a stumbling block for the sons of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. So the teaching of Balaam is to curse Israel by causing themselves to curse themselves, essentially. Because God will not curse what has been blessed, and that's the reason Balaam couldn't curse Israel, because they'd already been blessed. But they could bring about the curse on themselves by engaging in idolatry and adultery, so to speak. Sexual immorality is idolatry, in the sense of sexual sin is adultery and idolatry are related, in the sense idolatry is the same kind of going after a different partner, so to speak, than God. And this is in Pergamum. This is where this takes place in Revelation. So condemning those who rationalize immoral behavior and compromise with the world.
Got a hand?
Hand, yes.
Okay. Ruth and the other one who married Naomi has two sons. And they were both Moabites. So I'm guessing.
No, they were not Moabites.
Yeah, they
They
were.
married Moabite women.
Right.
Yes,
They married Moabite women.
Yes, so
They were
the
not
women,
Moabites.
the women were Moabites. So I'm guessing that they served the Lord instead of serving the Moabite false god.
Well, we see that they were living as Israelites in Moab, not as, followers of Baal in Moab.
Yeah, but I'm saying the daughter-in-laws.
Right. One of the interesting things you see when you look at genealogy, one of the thoughts about, how was Balaq rewarded, so to speak, for making offerings to Yah, in that his descendant would be on the throne of Israel, because Ruth is descended from Balaq. And so it's good that a son of Balaq, or a descendant of Balaq, is on the throne of Israel, in the sense that that's David. And Mashiach's lineage, of course, is from Messiah, son of David. So they would be, just because they're married women. I mean, the test of Ruth, they're not necessarily living. We see that specifically, Ruth is separate from her sister-in-law, because she says that, where you go, I will go. Your people are my people, and your God is my God. essentially is essentially a conversion statement. She became, part of Israel at that point with her following the God of Israel. And so she was basically a convert to Israel as she went across the border into Israel with her mother-in-law.
But the other daughter-in-law lied it was, because he married her. But I guess because he married her, that made him safe.
Who's this?
Oh,
You're talking about,
Naomi's sons married the Moabites because he married them instead of being prostituting.
it's a question of,
But it doesn't say that they worship the Moabite gods to get them.
it is an interesting story of why they even left, but they left because of, the financial issues, economic issues, why they went there. But they came back at the end of it. Sorry, what?
Famine.
Famine?
There was famine in Israel, so they.
Well, I don't think we have reason to doubt that they were Torah observant as they could be in the land of Moab, the sons. But they did all die there. But Naomi and Ruth returned, of course, to Israel. Well, Naomi returned and Ruth went. Brings us to any questions. This is some. I guess these are the 95th soldiers at some point in time.
Chinese. It's very.
Dixie's question is, why are you stopping? Let's pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father King, I thank you for allowing us to Midrash on your word. Thank you for your wisdom and for insight. We thank you in Yeshua's name. Amen. JD was online. He says, good Midrash.